My parents forced me to work since I was 16, stole my entire youth, and left everything to my brother. I was 16 years old when I came home from school one random Tuesday and found my mother sitting at the kitchen table with this weird, satisfied smile on her face. She announced, like she was telling me what we were having for dinner, that she had quit her job. Just like that. She was 52 and decided she had worked enough for one lifetime. My father nodded along like this was completely reasonable. I remember standing there with my backpack still on, trying to process what this meant, when my mother gestured for me to sit down. "We need to talk about the family finances," she said, folding her hands on the table like she was conducting a business meeting. I sat. My younger brother was at basketball practice, so it was just the three of us. "Your father's salary alone is not quite enough," my mother continued. "So we have decided that you will contribute to the household." I blinked. "Like, get a job?" "Exactly." She smiled like I had just solved a puzzle. "We already spoke to the manager at the supermarket down the street. You start Monday, 4 in the afternoon to 11 at night. That way you can still go to school." Wait. My brain was struggling to catch up. I am 16. I have homework. Everyone has responsibilities, my father cut in. "This is yours now." I should have run right then and there. I should have called someone, anyone. But I was 16 and terrified, and had been raised to believe that family came first. Always. So I went to that supermarket on Monday. The pay was absolutely miserable, barely above minimum wage. But apparently that did not matter because I was helping my family. My younger brother was 14 at the time. When I asked why he could not help out, my parents actually laughed. "He is too young," my mother said, not even looking up from her magazine. "He needs to focus on being a teenager, having fun, making friends." Meanwhile, I was working 7 hours a night, then dragging myself through homework until 2 in the morning. On good nights, I got 5 hours of sleep. Most nights, I got less. I started falling asleep in class. My grades dropped. My teachers called home concerned. "She is just lazy," my mother told them. I was standing right there when she said it. Always has been. My brother lived the life I should have had. He went to parties. He had girlfriends. He hung out with his friends after school while I was stocking shelves and scanning groceries. And my parents celebrated every single achievement like he had cured cancer. Made the basketball team? My mother bought a cake. Got asked to prom? She cried actual tears of joy. Meanwhile, I missed my own junior prom because I had a shift. Nobody cried about that. At home, I became invisible unless they needed money. My brother and my parents formed this tight little trio, and I was the outsider who happened to live there and fund everything. They had inside jokes I was not part of. They watched movies together on Friday nights while I was at work, and when I was home, they made fun of me. My brother started calling me the ghost because I was so pale and exhausted all the time. My parents thought this was hilarious. "Look at her," my father would say. "So serious all the time. No wonder she has no friends." I had friends. I just never saw them anymore because I was always working or sleeping or trying desperately to keep my grades from completely tanking. But sure, I was the problem. I took it all in silence. I gritted my teeth and kept going because I genuinely believed things would get better. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, proved myself enough, they would eventually see my value as something more than a paycheck. I was so incredibly wrong about that. The real nightmare started when I was 19. I had been working for 3 years at that point, slowly dying inside but still holding on. I was taking a few online college classes, moving at a snail's pace towards some kind of degree. That is when my parents sat me down for another family meeting, which is what they called it whenever they were about to demand something new. They could not afford the mortgage anymore. They did not phrase it like a request. My mother just slid a bill across the table. "This needs to be paid by the 15th, she said. "Every month." I looked at the amount and my hand started shaking. It was more than my entire monthly paycheck from the supermarket. "How am I supposed to pay this?" I asked. "Get more hours," my father said, like it was obvious. "Or find a second job." I was already working 35 to 40 hours a week on top of trying to go to school. I had not slept a full 8 hours in years. But sure, I would just magically find more time in the day. So I did. I found a second job doing data entry from home. I typed until my fingers cramped and my eyes burned. I drank so much coffee I started getting heart palpitations. I paid their mortgage, every single month, while my brother contributed absolutely nothing. He was 18 by then, old enough to work, but my parents said he needed to focus on college applications. Spoiler alert, he never went to college. He never even applied. But by the time they realized he had been lying about that, they had already established that his job was to be young. and mine was to fund everyone's existence. Then my brother got his girlfriend pregnant. He was 20 years old, she was 19, and they had been dating for maybe 3 months. I remember him coming home and telling our parents, and I braced myself for the explosion. Surely this would be the moment they realized their golden child was not so perfect. My mother screamed, but not in anger, but not in joy. She literally screamed, "I am going to be a grandmother," and started crying happy tears. My father clapped my brother on the back and called him a man. They threw a party, an actual celebration with family and friends and a cake that said, "Baby on board." I stood in the corner of that party, watching everyone congratulate my brother for getting a girl pregnant by accident, and my mother walked up to me with this look on her face. This disappointed, disgusted look. "You are 23 years old," she said, "and you cannot even get a boyfriend. What is wrong with you?" That moment broke something in me. I had been working myself into the ground for 7 years. I had paid for their house. I had given up my entire youth. And my brother got a girl pregnant by accident, and he was the hero. The girlfriend, by the way, disappeared about 2 months after the baby was born. Just vanished one day. Packed her stuff while my brother was out and left the baby in his crib with a note that said, "I cannot do this. I am sorry." My brother came home to a crying baby and no mother. My parents barely even reacted. My mother just picked up the baby and cooed at him, like this was totally normal, like women abandoned their newborns every day. Later, I found out the girlfriend had been struggling with severe postpartum depression, and her own family had basically told her to get lost. She was 19, terrified, and mentally unwell. Not that my parents ever acknowledged that. They just called her selfish and moved on. The baby got absorbed into the household. My nephew. I loved him immediately, which made everything worse because now I was paying for diapers, formula, clothes, doctor visits. All of it came out of my paycheck. I was 23 years old, working 2 jobs, taking 1 college class a semester because that was all I could manage, and partially raising a child that was not mine. I had never even been on a real date. I had never traveled anywhere. I had never done anything except work and sleep, and work some more. 2 years later, my brother did it again. Different girl, different story, same ending. This one stayed for almost a year, which felt like progress until she left too. She was an addict, it turned out. Pills first, then worse things. My brother knew, apparently, but thought love would fix her. It did not. She went to rehab, got clean for a few months, relapsed, and disappeared. We never heard from her again. Now there were 2 kids, 2 babies under the age of 3. My parents acted like this was totally normal. My brother was 22 years old, with 2 kids from 2 different women who had both left, and my parents still treated him like he could do no wrong. "He is so good with the babies," my mother would say, watching him play with them for 20 minutes before handing them back to her. Such a natural father. I got a 3rd job. Weekends at a restaurant. I worked 7 days a week. I cannot even remember most of my mid-20s because I was just surviving, not living. Every single dollar I made went to that house, those kids, and keeping everyone fed and clothed. I stopped buying new clothes for myself. I ate rice and beans most days. I developed stress-induced migraines that left me throwing up in the bathroom at work. My mother complained once that I looked tired all the time and it was embarrassing when relatives visited. I almost laughed. Almost. And then, because apparently the universe hated me, my brother managed to have a 3rd kid. I was 27 by then. He was 24. 3 kids, 3 different mothers, 0 of them around. This one was different, though. She was older, late 20s, and she seemed stable at first. Had a job, had her life together. She got pregnant. And for a minute, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this woman would stay. Maybe my brother had finally found someone who could handle him. She made it 6 months before she cracked. Turned out she had a whole life in another state. A career she had given up. Friends she had left behind. She tried to make it work. Genuinely tried. But being trapped in my parents' house with my parasitic brother and 2 other kids that were not hers broke her. She left a long letter explaining everything. How she felt trapped. How my brother had promised things would be different. How she could not breathe anymore. I read that letter after she left it on the kitchen counter. I understood every single word. I knew exactly how she felt. Because I was living it too. 3 kids now, ages 5, 3, and newborn. And my parents just kept absorbing them like it was fine. Like this was a normal family situation. Meanwhile, I had to get creative with my finances just to keep everyone afloat. I started buying store-brand everything. I stopped going to the doctor because I could not afford it. I wore shoes with holes in them for 6 months because new ones were not in the budget. But hey, at least my brother was giving them grandchildren, right? 3 weeks after the third baby arrived, something happened that I had not experienced in over a decade. I met someone. His name was Alex, and he worked in the accounting department at my day job, the one I had managed to keep through all the chaos. We started talking during lunch breaks. He was kind. He was funny. He actually listened when I talked, like my words mattered. We went on our first date on a Tuesday. Just coffee, nothing fancy, but I felt something shift inside me. Like maybe, just maybe, I could have something for myself. Maybe I deserve to be happy. I made the mistake of mentioning it at home. Just casual. Just, hey, I have been seeing someone from work. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw clenched. My brother looked up from his phone with this expression like I had just announced I was joining a cult. What do you mean, seeing someone? My mother asked slowly. Like dating. We have gone out a few times. My father stood up. Does he know about your responsibilities here? What responsibilities? You mean the job I have? Yeah, he knows I work. No. My mother's voice was sharp. Your responsibilities to this family. To your nephews. Does he understand that you cannot just abandon us? I was not abandoning anyone. I was going on dates. But the way they were looking at me, you would think I had announced I was moving to another country. It started small. My mother calling during dates. Every single time. At first, I answered because I was worried something serious had happened. Honey, you need to come home right now. Mom, I am at dinner. What is wrong? Your nephew fell and hurt his knee. He is crying for you. Is he bleeding? Do you need to go to the hospital? Well, no, but he is very upset. He really wants his aunt. I would look across the table at Alex, his patient smile starting to fade, and make excuses. The first few times he understood, but when it kept happening, when my phone rang during every single date we tried to have, he started looking at me differently, like maybe I was the problem. My father cornered me one Saturday morning. I had been seeing Alex for about a month at that point. We need to talk about this man you are seeing, he said. His name is Alex, and there is nothing to talk about. We are just dating. Men like that only want one thing. My father crossed his arms. And with you, that thing is probably money. You have a good job now, a nice salary. He can smell that. Alex makes more money than me. Dad, he is not interested in my finances. But my father did not want to hear it. He just kept going on about how men were users, how I needed to be careful, how family should come first. Always family first. Never mind that this family had been using me for 11 years straight. The worst was my brother. He waited until we were alone in the kitchen one night. I was making bottles for the babies, and he just started in on me. You are being really selfish, you know. I almost dropped the bottle I was holding. Excuse me? This thing with Alex. You are abandoning your responsibilities here. You have 3 nephews who need you, and you are off playing girlfriend. I turned to look at him. Really look at him. 24 years old, 3 kids from 3 different women, never worked a day in his life, living completely off my income. And he was calling me selfish. I work 3 jobs to pay for everything in this house, I said quietly. Including your children. What exactly am I abandoning? Your family? Us? You are choosing some random guy over your own blood. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the bottle at his head. Instead, I just finished making it and walked away. But that conversation sat with me, festered in my brain. Because as much as I hated to admit it, they were getting to me. Alex and I lasted 3 months. 3 months of interrupted dates, guilt trips, and constant family emergencies that were not emergencies. He finally asked me point blank if I actually wanted to be with him, because it seemed like I was always choosing my family over us. And the horrible truth was I was not choosing anything. I was just too exhausted to fight anymore. I was too worn down to defend my right to have something for myself. So I ended it. Told Alex it was not working out, that I was too busy, that we wanted different things. He looked confused and hurt, and I felt like the worst person alive. But I was so tired. So incredibly tired of fighting my family every single time I tried to do something for myself. When I told my parents we broke up, I could see the relief on their faces. They did not celebrate outright, but my mother actually smiled. A real smile. Like I had finally come to my senses and remembered where I belonged. That night, I cried for the first time in years. Real, ugly crying in my bedroom while my family watched television downstairs. And I realized something terrible. I was never going to be allowed to leave. They would sabotage any relationship I tried to have. They would guilt me and manipulate me and call me selfish until I gave up. I was going to die in this house, paying their bills, raising children that were not mine, and never having a life of my own. But then something changed. Something small that ended up being huge. I finished my degree. After 9 years of taking 1 or 2 classes a semester, working around my 3 jobs and family obligations, I finally graduated. I was 28 years old with an engineering degree and immediate job offers. I took the best one. The salary was 3 times what I had been making at my previous jobs combined. 3 times. And for the first time in my entire adult life, money was not the crushing weight it had always been. I could pay for everything and still have money left over. I even started saving a little. Part of me, the part that still foolishly hoped things could change, thought maybe this would be the turning point. Maybe now that I was successful, now that I had made something of myself despite everything, my parents would see me differently. Maybe they would finally value me as their daughter instead of just a source of income. I kept paying all the bills, the mortgage, utilities, groceries, everything for the kids. But now I could do it without drowning. I bought myself some new clothes, real clothes that fit and did not have holes in them. I went to the dentist for the first time in 6 years. I started eating better food, and I waited for them to notice, to acknowledge my achievement, to be proud of me. My mother's reaction to my graduation was, "That is nice. Can you pick up diapers on your way home?" My father did not even acknowledge it. My brother said, "Good for you, I guess," without looking up from his phone. That was it. 9 years of school, a degree in engineering, a prestigious job, and that was all I got. Meanwhile, my brother got a party every time he successfully got someone pregnant. I kept hoping, though, kept thinking that surely, eventually they would see me, really see me, but they never did. I was still just the bank, the ATM, the ghost who paid for everything and got nothing in return. My 30th birthday was the loneliest day of my life. I bought myself a small cake from the grocery store. Nothing fancy, just vanilla with chocolate frosting. I put it on the kitchen counter and mentioned casually that it was my birthday. My mother said, "That is nice," without looking up from her phone. She was scrolling through pictures of my nephews. My brother was in the living room with the kids and did not even acknowledge me. My father was at work. I sat alone at the kitchen table eating cake by myself, and I wondered when exactly I had become so worthless to them. 14 years. I had given them 14 years of my life. Started when I was 16, worked 3 jobs simultaneously, paid their mortgage, raised my brother's abandoned children, and they could not even wish me happy birthday. I went to my room that night and looked up apartments for rent. Just looked. I did not actually think I would leave. Not then. But something was shifting inside me. Some part of me that had been asleep for years was starting to wake up. 6 months later, everything fell apart in the most devastating way possible. My parents called a family meeting. I assumed it was another request for money or help with something. I was so used to these meetings that I did not even feel nervous anymore. Just tired. But when I walked into the living room and saw a man in a suit with a briefcase, I knew something was different. My parents were 70 years old by then, both still relatively healthy. The man introduced himself as a notary. They were doing their will, my mother explained, making sure everything was in order for when they eventually passed. I nodded along, not really understanding why I needed to be there for this. And then they said it, the words that shattered whatever hope I had left. "We have decided to leave the house entirely to your brother." I think I stopped breathing. The room went quiet. My brother was sitting in the armchair looking smug, like he had been waiting for this moment. "What?" My voice came out wrong. "Too high, too thin. The house will go to your brother when we pass," my father repeated. "We wanted you to hear it officially." But I struggled to form words. "I have been paying the mortgage for 11 years. More than half the house is paid off because of me." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "The house is in our name. What you paid was your contribution to the household. Rent, essentially." "Rent?" I almost laughed. "I have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars toward this house. And you are giving it all to him? He needs it more than you do," my father said calmly. "He has 3 children to raise. You have a good job. You can buy your own place." I turned to my mother. Surely she would see how insane this was. Surely she would. "You could not even keep a boyfriend," she said, and her voice was cold. "Your brother gave us 3 beautiful grandchildren. 3. Family. Legacy. You gave us nothing." My brother actually laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A real, genuine, mean laugh. He leaned back in his chair and looked at me with this expression of pure satisfaction. Finally, he said. Finally, someone in this family recognizes who actually matters. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of them. Dinero is not family, my mother continued. Your brother gave us love, joy, grandchildren. You can buy a house with all that money you make. He needs this one. The notary cleared his throat uncomfortably. He kept glancing at me like he wanted to say something but knew it was not his place. My parents signed the documents right there in front of me. I watched the pen move across the paper, watched them initial each page, watched them seal away any hope I had ever had of mattering to them. The notary finished witnessing the signatures and packed up his briefcase. He shook my parents' hands, nodded awkwardly at me, and left. I stood there for a moment, just breathing, in and out, in and out. And then I walked to my room, packed a bag, and left, just like that. No dramatic announcement, no final speech. I just walked out the door with my duffel bag and drove to a hotel. I did not cry until I was alone in that hotel room, and then I cried for hours. Big, ugly, gasping sobs that left me exhausted and hollow. I cried for the 16-year-old girl who had been robbed of her youth, for the 20-something who had sacrificed relationships and friendships and any chance at normalcy, for the 30-year-old woman who had just been told, officially and legally, that she would never matter to her own parents. The next morning, I found an apartment and signed a lease. It was small, nothing fancy, but it was mine. For the first time in my entire adult life, I had a space that belonged only to me. I moved in that week. I did not tell my parents I was leaving permanently. I just went and got my things one afternoon when they were out. 3 days after moving in, I went to the bank. I asked to speak with someone about my automatic payments. The representative pulled up my account and we went through every single one. I need to cancel these, I said, pointing at the screen. The mortgage payment, all the utilities for my parents' house, the monthly transfer to my brother's account for the kids' expenses. Everything. Are you sure? The banker asked. Some of these have been running for over a decade. I am absolutely sure. I watched her click through the screens, terminating payment after payment, and I felt physically lighter. Like chains that had been wrapped around me for 14 years were falling away one by one. It took maybe 15 minutes total. 14 years of financial servitude ended in 15 minutes. I did not call to warn them. I did not send a message. I just let the payment stop. They would figure it out when the mortgage payment did not go through. I was done explaining myself to people who had never listened. The first call came exactly 32 days later. My mother, voice high and panicked. The bank called. The mortgage payment was not received. What happened? Was there a mistake? I was at my apartment, drinking coffee in my pajamas at 11 in the morning. Something I had never been able to do before because I was always working. There is no mistake, I said calmly. I canceled all the payments. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean you canceled them? I mean, I went to the bank and canceled every automatic payment I had set up for that house. The mortgage, the utilities, all of it. But why would you? How could you? She was sputtering now, unable to form complete thoughts. The house is going to my brother according to the will you had notarized in front of me, so my brother can pay for it. Makes sense, right? You cannot be serious. This is insane. What about your nephews? What about... I have paid for those kids their entire lives. I have done more than enough. This is not my problem anymore. You are going to make us homeless, your own parents. How can you be so cruel? I took a sip of my coffee. It was good coffee, too. The expensive kind I had never been able to afford before. You made your choice when you signed that will. You chose him. So he can take care of you now. I am done. She started yelling then, calling me heartless, selfish, vindictive, evil. Every horrible thing she could think of. I listened for about 30 seconds. Then I said, I hope you figure it out, and hung up. I blocked all their numbers immediately. My mother, my father, my brother, every single one. I had to do it right then, before the guilt could creep in, before I could second-guess myself and cave like I always had before. For the next several hours, my phone buzzed constantly with blocked call attempts. I turned it off eventually, and just sat in the silence of my apartment. It was peaceful, quiet, mine. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, I had 67 missed calls and over 100 text messages from various numbers. Family members I had not heard from in years were suddenly very interested in my life choices. My uncle, how can you do this to your parents? They raised you. A cousin, you are going to let your nephews be homeless over money? Disgusting. My brother, from a different number since I had blocked his main one. You are the worst person I have ever met. Those kids love you and you are abandoning them. You are going to burn in hell for this. Message after message, some begging, some angry, some trying to guilt me with pictures of my nephews, extended family members I barely knew, telling me what a terrible person I was. People who had never once offered to help during all those years were now experts on family obligation. Only one person supported me. My aunt, my mother's younger sister, sent a simple message. I am proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. You have given more than enough. Live your life. That one message meant more than all the hateful ones combined. At least someone saw what had been happening. At least someone understood. But even with her support, the nights were hard. I would lie awake thinking about my nephews. They were 8, 6, and 5 years old. Sweet kids who had already been abandoned by their mothers and now were going to lose their home. I looked at pictures of them on my old phone, their little faces at birthday parties I had funded, Christmas mornings I had made possible. I almost broke. I almost called my mother back and said I would resume payments. But then I would remember sitting in that living room watching my parents sign that will. I would remember my brother's laugh. I would remember 30 years of being invisible, and I would keep my phone off. According to messages from my aunt, who I had not blocked, my parents were frantically trying to find solutions. They went to multiple banks trying to get a loan, but they were 70 years old with no income besides Social Security. No bank would touch them. My brother tried to, apparently, applied everywhere. Every single bank rejected him. No credit history, no employment history, no assets, no collateral. He was a 26-year-old man with 3 kids and had never held a job in his entire life. No one in their right mind would lend him money. They tried borrowing from relatives. Everyone suddenly had excuses. Money was tight. They had their own problems. Maybe if it was a smaller amount. Sorry, but no. 2.5 months after I stopped paying, my aunt called me from a number I did not have blocked. They got a foreclosure notice, she said. The bank is moving forward with repossession. They have 90 days to either pay the full amount owed or the house will be taken. Okay, I said, because what else was there to say? Your mother is making herself sick over this. Your father had to go on blood pressure medication. I am sorry to hear that. Are you, though? My aunt's voice was not accusatory, just curious. Honestly, I do not know anymore. I do not think I have the capacity to care. She was quiet for a moment. That is probably healthy, all things considered. The 90 days passed. My parents tried everything, begging the bank for an extension, trying to sell the house themselves, but they were too far behind on payments and the liens made it impossible. My brother raged on social media about ungrateful family members, though he never named me directly. My aunt told me my father just went silent, stopped talking to anyone, just sat in his chair staring at nothing. My mother alternated between crying and trying to rally relatives to pressure me. Neither worked. The foreclosure went through. They received an official eviction notice with 30 days to vacate the premises. The house I had paid on for 11 years was being taken by the bank, and there was nothing any of them could do about it. The day of the eviction, I did not go. I did not watch. I did not want to see them packing up their lives and being forced out. My aunt sent me updates anyway. It is chaos here, she texted. Your brother is screaming at the officers. Your mother has not stopped crying. The kids are terrified and confused. Your father loaded boxes like a robot. I read the messages and felt nothing. I had been emotionally wrung out for so long that there was nothing left to feel. No satisfaction, no guilt, no sadness, just a hollow sort of emptiness. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. My parents took 1 bedroom. My brother and the 3 boys crammed into the other. My aunt said it was depressing. Cramped and sad and nothing like the house they had lost. Your mother looks like she has aged 10 years, my aunt told me over coffee one day. We had started meeting occasionally. She was the only family member I still spoke to. Your father developed this tremor in his hands from stress. The boys are acting out in school. And my brother? She made a face. Still not working, still playing video games all day while your parents try to keep everyone fed. They created that monster. They can deal with him. I know. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am not saying you should help. I am just giving you information. What you do with it is your choice. For the first time in my adult life, my paycheck was actually mine. All mine. It felt surreal to log into my bank account and see money accumulating instead of being drained immediately. I could spend it on whatever I wanted without calculating if I had enough left over for everyone else. I bought real furniture for my apartment. Not hand-me-downs or thrift store finds. Actual new furniture that I picked out myself. I bought good coffee, expensive cheese, wine that did not come in a box. I went to restaurants without checking my bank balance first. I also started therapy. Probably should have done that years ago, but better late than never. My therapist was the first person I told the whole story to. Every bit of it, from age 16 to now. She did not interrupt, did not judge, just listened. When I finished, she leaned forward and said something that made me cry for the first time in weeks. You were parentified and financially abused for 14 years. Setting boundaries does not make you a monster. It makes you healthy. And choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. Parentified. I had never heard that term before. She explained how I had been forced into an adult caregiver role as a teenager and never allowed to be anything else. How my parents had failed me fundamentally by making me responsible for their financial stability. But what about my nephews? I asked. They did not ask for any of this. No, they did not. But they are not your children. Their well-being is not your responsibility. You have already done more for them than most aunts ever would. You are allowed to stop. It took months of therapy to really internalize that. To believe that I was not a monster for setting boundaries. That I had every right to protect myself. That their choices were not my burden to carry. About 4 months after the eviction, my aunt called with news that made my blood run cold. Your brother left. Left where? Left. Gone. He met some woman on the internet. Some girl from Nevada and decided to start fresh with her. Just packed a bag last Tuesday and disappeared. Told your parents he was done with the responsibility, that they could handle the kids. Then he blocked everyone's numbers and vanished. I sat down on my couch trying to process this. He abandoned his own children? All 3 of them. Your parents are raising them alone now. At 71 years old. The irony was almost funny. Almost. My parents had spent decades enabling my brother, celebrating him, choosing him over me at every turn. And the second things got hard, he bailed. Left them holding the bag with 3 kids to raise in their 70s. How are they managing? I asked, not sure why I cared. Barely. Your mother got a job cleaning houses. Your father is working night security at an office building. They are exhausted. The kids are acting out because their dad left and they do not understand why. It is a disaster. Part of me, the petty part I am not particularly proud of, thought, good. Let them feel what I felt. Let them struggle like I struggled. Let them see what it is like to sacrifice everything with no recognition or appreciation. But mostly, I just felt tired. I had spent so much energy on them for so long that I had nothing left to give. Not even anger. Just a hollow sort of indifference. I am not going back, I said. I know. I am not asking you to. I just thought you should know. I did not contact them. I did not send money. I did not check in. I just kept living my life. My quiet, peaceful, mine life. I started taking painting classes on Tuesday evenings. I had always wanted to learn but never had time or money. Now I had both. I was terrible at it, completely awful. But it was fun. The instructor was patient and kind, and the other students were friendly. I made friends with some of my neighbors. Normal people who did not want anything from me except conversation and maybe help carrying groceries occasionally. I adopted a cat from the shelter and named her Luna. She was the first living thing I was responsible for that I actually chose to be responsible for. And when taking care of her felt like too much, I could just not get a cat. But I wanted her. That was the difference. My apartment was clean and quiet. I could sleep 8 hours a night if I wanted. I could eat dinner at a reasonable hour. I could watch whatever I wanted on television without someone making fun of my choices. I could exist without constantly calculating if I had enough money to cover everyone else's needs. It was incredible. It was peaceful. It was mine. My therapist asked me once if I had any regrets. I thought about it for a long time. I regret not leaving sooner. I regret believing that if I just sacrificed a little more, worked a little harder, proved myself a little better, they would love me. I regret wasting 14 years on people who only valued me for my money. Do you regret cutting them off? No. What about your nephews? That one was harder. I love those kids. I do. But they were never my responsibility. They should have been their father's responsibility, and he abandoned them. Their mothers abandoned them. Their grandparents enabled their father his entire life and created the situation they are now in. I paid for those kids' food, clothes, shelter, medical care for years. I gave more than most aunts ever would. It had to be enough because I had nothing left to give. She nodded. That is a very healthy boundary. It does not always feel healthy. Sometimes it feels cruel. Protecting yourself is not cruelty. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I am 31 now. It has been a year since I left. A year since I stopped paying for their lives and started living my own. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I had run away at 16, if I had refused from the beginning, if I had called Child Protective Services or a school counselor or anyone. Would I have finished school earlier, traveled, had normal relationships, married Alex or someone like him? I will never know. Those years are gone. I cannot get them back. But I can make sure I do not waste any more time on people who see me as nothing but a source of income. My parents made their choices. They chose favoritism. They chose to exploit one child while spoiling another. They chose to value grandchildren over their own daughter. They chose to write me out of their will while expecting me to fund their lives indefinitely. Those were their choices, and now they are living with the consequences. I made my choice too. I chose myself. I chose boundaries. I chose peace. People can call me selfish. Let them. People can say I should have helped more, done more, been more. Let them. People who were not there, who did not live it, who did not sacrifice 14 years of their lives, do not get an opinion on my choices. I know the truth. I gave 14 years to people who saw me as nothing more than income. I gave my youth, my health, my relationships, my happiness. I gave until there was nothing left to give. And when I finally stopped, when I finally said enough, they acted like I was the villain in their story. But I am not the villain. I am not the hero either. I am just a person who finally learned that setting boundaries is not selfish, that protecting yourself is not cruel, that you cannot sacrifice yourself into being loved by people who are fundamentally incapable of valuing you. I learned it too late to get those years back. But I learned it in time to save what was left of my life. I am enough, just as I am, without proving anything, without sacrificing anything, without being useful to anyone except myself. I am enough. That is where I am now, living in my apartment with my cat, going to work, taking painting classes, drinking good coffee, sleeping through the night, being spectacularly ordinary, and it is more than I ever had before. It is freedom. Whatever happens to them from here is not my problem anymore. I hope my nephews turn out okay. I genuinely do. I hope they get the help and stability they need, but I cannot save them. I could not even save myself when I was their age. All I can do now is live the life I should have been allowed to live from the beginning. And that is exactly what I am doing. Finally.